Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Business Spotlight interview. Today it is my great pleasure to have Neil Mathews, Director of Neil Mathews Architects, with me today. Hi Neil, how are you?
Hello there.
Look, delighted you could join us. Why don't you share with us just for a couple of minutes who you are, what you do, and for how long you've been doing it?
Well, I've had my own business for the last 18, 19 years. It was April '06 whenever I first started out. Before that, I was living in London, working for some of the best practices there. But the draw of coming back home to Northern Ireland eventually persuaded me. And it's been good fun ever since, from working on some very, very prestigious buildings there and to move into a nice place where there's still all sorts of opportunities. Not only have I been exploring those, but continue to find new things all the time in what is a very special part of the world, really. But yes, my clients vary from the tiniest of small domestic projects to large hotels, bars and restaurants and offices across the UK and further afield.
Fantastic. And that leads nicely into me asking who your ideal customer is. Do you have like a specific ideal customer, or you're happy to do work for across the whole spectrum?
Across the whole spectrum, of course, but you very quickly get to suss out who's going to be a good client and who not. And there are those who would set out from the start to try and make sure that there is no profit in it for you, and there is no, and you're always going to be on the back foot. So we quickly learn how to sidestep those and look after the more important ones. And whether it be a tiny shower extension or a huge hotel, provided you're allowed to do your job correctly and provide a correct service, then the world is a pleasant place.
Fantastic. So at least 16, 18 years in your own business, plus all the prior experience working for other prestigious architectural firms. What's the biggest learning since you've been a business owner yourself?
The biggest learning. Now there's so many things to impart, but I would never profess to be an expert at it, because you're learning something every day. And part of the other, as aside from my normal architectural practice, I own a school of architecture which delivers the final year in architecture, your seventh year. And so that has been going for 11 years now. Um,
Fantastic.
and so we're one of only 26 institutions in the UK licensed to grant the protected title of architect. And our only competition in Belfast is Queen's University, not University of Ulster, because they don't have that course. So I take on students from all over the world for that. Some as far away as Hong Kong and Canada that we have coming through this year.
That's
Um,
fabulous.
and it's all run online. But that's aside from the thing. So the reason that I don't um, like professing to be an expert in anything is that you are always learning things every day, and I
Yeah.
employ a very expert team of advisors and speakers who teach on that course with me. And so that's a great experience. But if you're going to pinpoint something which I would as greatest learning experience is, focus hard on what you're supposed to be doing, and don't tell anyone else what you're up to, really.
Very, very good. Yeah, focus is one of the key things, isn't it, in growing a
Mhm.
business? When you were growing up, Neil, is that something that you always wanted to do?
Funny enough, it is. Whenever you and I were at Larne Grammar, and you want to think what we're going to do is for the rest of our careers, I had to think very hard
Yeah.
and, and figure out what exactly I was good at and what I could combine. I was pretty good at art, as I think you were too at one stage. I remember.
Mm.
You were,
I wouldn't credit myself so good at art, but
well, and also was good at science and technology.
yeah,
And at home, I was racing a lot of motorbikes and building a lot of motorbikes and restoring old motorbikes and maintaining new ones. So that was very practical. My father's a cabinet maker, So he was always making things there. My mother's a dentist and an artist. So when you combine a lot of that background and a lot of what we was doing at the time, it seemed like a logical thing to have a mix of art and science, and architecture seemed to be the right fit.
Yeah, yeah.
Thankfully, I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was something I learned to embrace very early on.
Fantastic. And with both parents having their own businesses, then is that something that you grew up aspiring to having your own business?
Not necessarily, but it's something that it's a bit like looking through a kaleidoscope, which sooner or later comes into focus like a telescope, and you see exactly what you want in front of you.
Yes. Yeah.
And there are several things brought that into mind. Autonomy in life, I think, whether it's in business or autonomy, the less people that we answer to, the better.
Mm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so having your own business is, of course, the first stage in that, really. But it's never easy because you have to be everything. You have to be the lawyer, the accountant, the designer, the doer, the marketer, the yeah, you've got to do everything. Whereas if we were working for a team or within a team of people, there, you know, other people do those, and you find yourself specialized into one thing or other. But so I guess that's a not a frustration, but that's a balance that's a delicate one to keep on top of, really.
Oh yes, yeah. And
Mm,
we see that a lot
mm,
with business owners, and sometimes I'm not sure if it's the case in your scenario, but a lot of times business owners get so stuck in the doing
mhm,
and being in that hamster wheel in their business that they find it very hard to stand back and work on their business.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
So, what has been the biggest issue you've had to overcome running your own business?
Cash flow. Yeah, I've let me see. Whenever I first set up in business, um, there were lots of different banks saying, "Here, Neil, have this facility. What do you want? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 pounds?" And I said, "Absolutely not. I'm a non-trading entity. Why would I be worth that?" And but there were many, many, many people out there that said yes to that.
Yeah.
So I've stayed debt free through all of these ups and downs over the last
Congratulations. Well
20
done.
years. Yeah.
Well done.
That doesn't mean to save any money, it just means I've no debt.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it can be difficult. I've noticed in the last 3 years, things have really tailed off steadily, less and less, and we have to work harder and harder for the smaller things that are there.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think that partly to do with COVID, but I think there are other things afoot as well, which I haven't quite put my finger on. Sometimes I've seen myself as being so small that I would be no barometer of what's actually happening out there. But actually, when I look carefully at it, I can, because I'm working on such a broad spectrum of projects, I can see that the world is changing.
Yes.
I don't know where it's going to stop, but
Sure.
it's difficult at the moment. Yeah.
Sure. And through all of that, then, what have you learned about yourself during your journey?
What have I learned about myself? Um, that I'm appalling at time management
Okay.
and organization. If I was more disciplined at that, or if I was able to be better at my time management, I think I would achieve more. Yeah. At the moment, sometimes when you're running your own business, you can find yourself not, there's so little time to spend on everything that you never get doing anything the way that you exactly want.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
when we work together in teams, you might find that the burden is more straightforward to share, really.
Very good. And a fantastic share. Appreciate your honesty. And certainly for the community, I'm sure that they will see and hear some of these nuggets that you're already
Yeah.
coming
Well,
out with
if
as
if it's a
crucial for
candid
them.
candid thing about what to watch out for, I think that's the key thing. Yeah.
Totally. So, just as another one about your business, what's the most surprising aspect of owning a business yourself?
The most surprising, mm, well, I'll say rewarding for me. There are two moments in an entire process where it all makes sense, or it all which you work towards. One is whenever you've sketched up an idea after listening to a client or what their needs are.
Yeah.
and they say, yes, that's exactly what I like. The second moment in the process is when you've got it all finished, and they say, yep, that's exactly what you promised me. And in between times, sometimes that can be years apart and a whole heap of logistics in between, but that's really all. It's logistics. But those
Yeah.
are the two moments that we work towards when a client is, when first of all, you've communicated your ideas to stage where they say yes. And the next is whenever it's finished. Oh, yeah, that's what you said you was going to get.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So, anybody in business that's a particular inspiration to you?
Yeah, I still hold my old boss called Eric Parry in great esteem. He's a fabulous fellow. And still working hard. And then my old professors are sadly no longer with us, Andy McMillan and Izzy Metstein at the Mackintosh School of Architecture. And then another fellow called Roger McMichael, who was through sailing actually, Richard. My
Yeah.
dad sailed on Langstone Lady with Graham Miller, and one of his other mates on there was a guy called Roger McMichael, who was an architect. So when I was 14, my dad brought me into his huge office in Belfast. There were 200 people there in this open plan space. And son wants to be an architect. What do you make of him? He said, oh, yeah. And it didn't faze me at all being in this place. And really and then later, when I did my year out, I worked for him in 1995. And so he was always been a friend and a mentor ever since the word go. So yeah, there would be 3 or 4 people over the years I still
Fantastic.
keep in touch with. Yeah.
That's great. And it's crucial, isn't it, in business to have those peers and mentors and people that you can bounce things off and get help from when you need to.
There's a time I wouldn't have wanted to set up my own any earlier, and couldn't really have done it any later, I suppose. But yeah, there's some things that you miss whenever you have a small business that you know that are you take for granted when you're in a big place. Really, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, do you have any sort of favorite books that you turn to, or are you more a podcast sort of guy when you're looking for motivation?
In terms of architecture, there are still some fabulous things about, but I barely get time to look at architecture. I'm almost like the violin player who hangs the fiddle in the door on the way in at night.
Hmm.
I things that I find great difficulty with. I'll start from that side. The likes of grand designs, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
for good television, these things are all spiced up, as I would say it. You know, you've got
yes.
Kevin MacLeod, starting with, and here's a client who they decided to just get on, let the builder start their house before they'd any details or a cost worked out. Now all their life savings are spent. Join us next week for da, 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 da. And it's like, if I were to do a grand designs, mine would be the most boring one ever, because everything would be done on time. The correct people would be employed, and it would be a nice, safe journey, which is what we are at the end of the day. We're a safe
Yeah.
pair of hands to be let loose in the public to realize their dreams, and that's what we do. Yeah.
Well, that's essential, isn't it?
Yeah, you would. Yeah, yeah. People take such risks in building projects. It's
Yeah,
petrifying.
yeah,
I just wanted paid cash. Oh, really? Really? And how do you account for that? Or who signs that off? Yeah. We don't take a risk. A transaction buying a car costs many, many thousands. A transaction buying a house costs many, many thousands. People don't take risks with that. They go and
yeah,
they do it properly. And it's a transaction which very often is, for a car, it can happen in a few minutes. For a house, a few weeks sometimes. But even a small building extension can take a long time and be very complicated.
yes, yeah,
But it's still a lot of money involved. And the
sure,
risks that people take are staggering,
sure,
staggering.
sure.
And as professional, what architects do are there to try and keep you on the right path, keep you out of trouble,
Yeah.
and keep things moving smoothly, which is what we do. Yeah.
Well, that's it. And keeping you out of trouble is, I guess, ties into my next sort of question for you. So, what does the future look like? What do you see as your main challenges or the main troubled waters moving forward?
Well, in terms of what our profession has done, in terms of being sued, there are less and less architects being sued out there at the moment, because we've, over the years, the risk pie has been apportioned, often by choice, but sometimes not, to other members of the construction team. For example, builders and quantity surveyors and financial project managers. You know, they carry a lot more of the weight, and when they buy the risk, they get to be in charge of things.
Yeah.
And architects, for our sometimes pedanticity of procedure and professional mechanisms, that sometimes it can be too long and too convoluted. I think, and it's not straightforward for a client. They say, get me a house. There are a lot of things come with that. So yeah, that the challenges are to try and, for us as a profession, try and regain some of that ground.
Yeah.
And when we get back more of the risk pie, then we take more of the control. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the world is a litigious place, which is why everybody's, it's changed really, Richard. It's
True.
You've got to stay on the right side of things.
Yeah.
I was just explaining to one of our guys there earlier that, we carry insurance. I carry £1 million of insurance, for which I have to pay a hefty premium every year.
Yeah.
And it's not like car insurance, which gets cheaper as you get older and more sensible on the road. Because there's more out there to insure. Our PI gets more and more expensive every year.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
So yeah, those are the challenges to keep paying the bills and keep enough exciting work coming in to
fantastic shares, Neil. Really good. Appreciate that. So coming now to I guess towards the end of our chat together. Again, thank you so much for carving out time to invest in the spotlight. What would you say to anyone thinking of going into business for themselves nowadays?
I would put that off as long as possible. Don't do it until you see a real opportunity and a gap in the market, or whatever that business may be. Until you have a really strong idea which is going to work. And head for a specialism as soon as you possibly can. I have to cover an awful lot of bases, but I'd rather be working in a specialism, at a certain tip, and we're knocking out more of productivity, cash flow. We're slightly different. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And don't undertake it lightly, really, and stay out of debt if you can. I would suggest do it off as long as you can, and don't do it till the moment's right.
Yeah. Excellent advice, Neil. Really good advice. And for those coming up behind us in this journey of life, three really good pieces of information there in terms of not safe, stay in the harbour and never move out of the harbour, but safe and measured risk advice. Really good. So if we could take the clock and wind it back to when we both had hair, around about 18, what would be the best piece of advice you would give an 18-year-old Neil?
Stay focused, see what's important, and don't get annoyed by stay clear of human beings who would seek to try and do you down, and don't be put off by them.
Brilliant.
That's what I would say. The world revolves around human beings.
Yeah.
And the better that we understand that they're an asset, the quicker we'll get through.
Sure. Look, brilliant nuggets that you've shared today. Really appreciate your time, Neil, and been a pleasure having you on. And let me wish you every continued success in Neil Mathews Architects. And if anybody wanted to contact you, I presume you have some web exposure or through LinkedIn, something like that there.
Yeah, well, just look up Neil Mathews Architects and you'll get the School of Architecture on Archex as well, archex.co.uk. So that's where we take on all of our students. Those are the two sides of the business. Yeah. So
fantastic. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Good to catch up with you. And thanks again.
in person the next time as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
Coffee.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm. Great stuff. Thank you, Richard.